Aloha, friends, and welcome from around the world. Namaste. It would be hard to try to say hello in all the different languages from all over the world, from the middle of the Pacific Ocean to India, to the Middle East, to the United States. I'm sure all the various continents, just scrolling through the screen here, looking at all of your dear faces. It's incredible to see friends from Panchgani, to Los Angeles, from New York, to the Marshall Islands. Friends, welcome. It's wonderful that our dear brother George has brought us from across this planet together again in such a beautiful, beautiful way during this very special time to remember him and his family, and to share a few prayers and thoughts and reflections, and to really celebrate a life that has touched each of us in profound ways. And I hope after the formal program, we're able to stick around and hear from a few of you in sharing your thoughts, your prayers, your chants. And it's really a wonderful opportunity to see all of you again. We really are blessed to be joining two families, the Menezes family as well as the Akhtajahan family, who are coming together to celebrate dear George's life and the impact that he's had on not only these families, but so many other families over such a long lifespan. Just to briefly kind of set the stage and to allow us to get into this mindset of remembering George, we recall that George came from a small village outside of Mysore to a Catholic family who moved to Mumbai when he was a young boy of about 9 or 10 years old. And the stories about his life in Mumbai are quite wonderful, and maybe we'll hear some of those stories. It was really amazing to think of him at that time as a young man meeting Baha'is, working in a Baha'i tea shop and restaurant. He used to also work at VT stations, serving bananas, selling bananas to British soldiers, where he was introduced to cheese. And we all know his love for cheese throughout his life. As a young Baha'i, he responded to the call for pioneers to Panchgani, where he went and he started to not only learn more about the faith through Mr. Mershahi Sr., not Amin, but Amin's father. I see Amin on the screen there. And through that, his love for the faith and his love for humanity continued to grow and deepen, and set him on this path of service that spanned many, many, many decades. He was serving at the school and in the community and throughout the villages in the surrounding area of Panchgani for many, many years. He married his dear soulmate, Rezwan Menezes, in 1962. They were married for 58 years. And about 3 decades after being married, they moved to Sikkim in northern India, where they continued their service and working with young people and their pursuit of education. And so, friends, his passing after more than 9 decades on this planet of ours is a life worth remembering and reflecting on. And we are really blessed to be invited and joining today 2 families that come together to celebrate his life. We are going to be hearing from many of his grandchildren this morning, who will offer prayers and readings, as well as a few other friends who will offer some reflections. And then after the close of the formal program, we will open up to some sharing from others as well. Just remember, friends, to keep your mic on mute so you don't interrupt unwittingly the program. And then after the program, we'll reconnect. So again, welcome friends. Lauapa, namaste, hello to all the friends from around the world. And we turn it over now to the friends who will be offering prayers and readings and reflections.
O my God, verily thy servant, humble before the majesty of thy divine supremacy, lowly at the door of thy oneness, hath believed in thee and in thy verses, hath testified to thy word, hath been enkindled with the fire of thy love, hath been immersed in the depths of the ocean of thy knowledge, hath been attracted by thy breezes, hath relied upon his supplications to thee, and hath been assured of thy pardon and forgiveness. He hath abandoned this mortal life, and hath flown to the kingdom of immortality, yearning for the favor of meeting thee. O Lord, glorify his station, shelter him under the pavilion of thy supreme mercy, cause him to enter thy glorious paradise, and perpetuate his existence in thine exalted rose garden, that he may plunge into the sea of light in the world of mysteries. Verily thou art the generous, the powerful, the forgiver, the bestower. Abdul Baha.
thou that every hearing ear, if kept pure and undefiled, must at all times and from every direction hearken to the voice that uttereth these holy words. Verily, we are God's, and to him shall we return. The mysteries of man's physical death and of his return have not been divulged and still remain unread. By the righteousness of God, were they to be revealed, they would evoke such fear and sorrow that some would perish, while others would be so filled with gladness as to wish for death and beseech with unceasing longing the one true God, exalted be his glory, to hasten their end. Death preferreth unto every confident believer the cup that is life indeed. It bestoweth joy and is the bearer of gladness. It conferreth the gift of everlasting life, as to those that have tasted of the fruit of man's earthly existence, which is the recognition of the one true God. Exalted be his glory. Their life hereafter is such as we are unable to describe. The knowledge thereof is with God alone, the Lord of all the worlds. Baha'u'llah.
O my God, O thou forgiver of sin, bestower of gifts, dispeller of affliction. Verily, I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world. O my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows, and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness, cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors in the loftiest
Are the stars of the heaven of understanding, the breeze that stirreth at the break of day, the soft flowing waters upon which must depend the very lives of all men. Ye are the first amongst men to be recreated by his Spirit, the first to adore and bow the knee before him, the first to circle round his throne of glory, glory. Ye are the stars of the heaven of understanding, the breeze that stirreth at the break of day, the soft flowing waters upon which must depend the very light of all men, the very light of all men.
Friends, we're going to hear from our dear Adib Behi, who is going to share some reflections about George. He's known George from a very early age, and so we look forward to hearing some reflections from dear Mr. Behi.
Hi. I am much honored to have been asked to say a few words about George, and I will show my respect for him in a eulogy. I've known him about 50 years ago, and his memory always lingers. To prepare for this, I did not have to dig deep into the recesses of my memories to talk about George. More than anyone else who served at Indira High School in Panchgani during its formative years, To me, he represented the essence of humility and service. George was the most unassuming, selfless person who you'd see flitter from one task to another, giving a helping hand when needed without being asked. He sensed when help was required and would be there to move that rock from someone's way, then carry on without looking for a thanks. He did it because he loved to give us a push when anyone was struggling to climb the hill. He would drop a word of encouragement when he sensed a person needed a sympathetic ear. George was always on the move like a bee resting on one flower to the next. And through this all, he had the constant support of his beloved soulmate, Rezwan. He never looked for appreciation from anyone else because it was so natural to him to be of service. But imagine this, little heartfelt silent words of gratitude would follow him like butterflies. George was there in the shed, fixing the water pump because the students had to have their bath. Any help needed in the kitchen, George would be there to churn the cream into butter, to clean up after a mishap, to stir the huge cooking pots when he sensed the old chef looked tired. He kept an eye on everything. He pushed here, tucked there, dusted, swept the floors, and on and on. You would never see George just sitting and relaxing. Oh no. For him, there was always someone who needed his kind presence and helping hand. If there was something to be done, he did it with that hint of a smile I like to call the George smile, a smile that revealed his humility. Oh, to see that smile again and to take comfort in his presence, knowing that what problem you have, he would be there to lighten the load. I never heard him say much or expound on religious and moral ethics, but his actions spoke volumes of his devotion to the school, to the cause, to the students, and most of all, to his dear wife, Rezwan. We will miss you, George. I will miss you, George. But you will forever be sparkling in our thoughts and tugging at our heartstrings. Be at peace now that you are in the Abha kingdom, a heaven where, knowing you, you will once again be picking up fallen feathers of angel wings, dusting them and returning them with that wonderful knowing smile. Every kind deed performed with selflessness will remind us of your graciousness. Every prayer we chant will have a special little punctuation comma, giving us that moment of pause to reflect on the beauty of your soul. Love you, George. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Behi. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thanks.
We'll continue with the devotional program now, friends.
Know thou that the soul of man is exalted above and is independent of all infirmities of body or mind. That a sick person showeth signs of weakness is due to the hindrances that interpose themselves between his soul and his body. For the soul itself remaineth unaffected by any bodily ailments. Consider the light of the lamp. Though an external object may interfere with its radiance, the light itself continueth to shine with undiminished power. In like manner, every malady afflicting the body of man is an impediment that preventeth the soul from manifesting its inherent might and power. When it leaveth the body, however, it will evince such ascendancy and reveal such influence as no force on earth can equal. Every pure, every refined and sanctified soul will be endowed with tremendous power and shall rejoice with exceeding gladness. O son of worldliness, pleasant is the realm of being, wert thou to attain thereto. Glorious is the domain of eternity, shouldst thou pass beyond the world of mortality. Sweet is the holy ecstasy if thou drinkest of the mystic chalice from the hands of the celestial youth. Shouldst thou attain this station, thou wouldst be freed from destruction and death, from toil and sin.
तूने अपने दस्त कुदरत से चिराग़े अम्र को रोशन किया है। नूर हिकमत से, नूर हिकमत से, नूर हिकमत से, से इसे महफूज रख हर समत की बादे मुखालिफ से। चिराग़ व नूर तेरा शीशा व फानूस तेरा है। ये तेरे दस्ते कुदरत में है असबाब जहां सारे। चिराग़ व नूर तेरा शीशा व फानूस तेरा है। ये तेरे दस्ते कुदरत में है असबाब जहां सारे। तेरे ज़ीरे हुकूमत है ज़मीनो आसमां सारे। तेरे ज़ीरे हुकूमत है ज़मीनो आसमां सारे। खुदाया हाकिमों को अदल की कुव्वत अता फरमा। खुदाया आलमों को जज़्बे इंसाफ से गरमा। खुदाया 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 हाकिमों को अदल की कुव्वत अता फरमा। खुदाया आलमों को जज़्बे इंसाफ से गरमा। तू ही वो मुक़्तदिर है जिसने अपने मुल्क कुदरत से किए हैं दीन बरहक को मुअय्यद खास नुसरत से। तू ही वो मुक़्तदिर है जिसने अपने मुल्क कुदरत से किए हैं दीन हक को मुअय्यद खास नुसरत से दिखाई राह तूने औलिया को दीने फितरत की मिले हैं रहरवानो ए नूर को मंजिले हकीकत की दिखाई राह तूने औलिया को दीने फितरत की मिले हैं रहरवानो ए नूर को मंजिले हकीकत की तू ही है मालिके कुदरत व मलीके मुक्तदर तू है तेरा कब्जा हर एक शहीद पर हमेशा और हर सू है तू ही है गालिब-ए मुख्तार तू ही है वादत-ए इक्ता वजुज़ तेरे खुदा कोई नहीं वजुज़ तेरे खुदा कोई नहीं और हो नहीं सकता इलाही या इलाही इलाही या इलाही
So beautiful. Thank you uh, for sharing that incredible chant in Urdu. Leave it to George to have his favorite prayer in a language not of his mother tongue. He's a man who spoke many languages. And so friends, we are going to now hear from Fly River Tafaki, who originates from a small island in the heart of the Pacific called Tuvalu. And he now lives for the past many years with Irene, his dear wife, in the Marshall Islands. Fly River, we turn it to you. Unmute yourself and then remember to mute yourself back.
A greeting to all. I was listening to the Adib's statement, and I was quite taken aback because the words he chose to describe the qualities of dear George was so much alike to the words I chose myself when I made some notes a few days ago. And but as far as George is concerned, I had the privilege of working with him closely when Dr. Ray Johnson appointed us to the team, the rural development project of the newer school, just below the valley in Chikli Valley in Panchgani. And he really was our point man, our kind of the person who, when we're in trouble, we go to him to resolve. Sorry, we had a tsunami here the other day. And I found him, I had the privilege of working with him closely, as I said, and I found him possibly one of the most humble, unpretentious, selfless, devoted servant of the cause to work with. And he was everywhere in the valley. He was in the fields. At one moment, he's in the classroom talking with teachers, and another is supervising the domestic water supply scheme. I think Anwar and I refer to him as the George the Omnipresent, because he was everywhere. And he would just disappear into a nearby wadi or village, and nobody would know. So we would hang around looking from house to house. And that's George, everywhere, anywhere, and somewhere. He had a very sharp, natural rapport with the community of 3,000 people in the valley, genuinely loving and serving them. And without doubt, they in return loved and trusted and respected him. And virtually almost every day they were up to seek George's advice up at the school. Tireless, as Adib Bey said, tireless. Difficult to see him taking a rest somewhere or sitting down. He's always on the move. When I first went to Panchgani in 1974, I spent a few days with the Johnsons, and then later George came to take me and my bag to live in the apartment next door to Rezwan Khanum. And as we walked up the tiles towards the stairs, the pathway, I saw there wiggling himself on the floor was a green mamba, a snake. And it was the first time I'd seen a snake alive in my life. And George never took a step back, or he just stepped over the snake and continued up the steps. I tried to imitate him, even though I was scared to death. And I stepped over the snake, and I went up to him, and George turned around and said, "That's a very poisonous snake. One bite and you're dead." The last time I'm looking at my notes again. The last time I saw George was in 1992. I forget the month, but the World Center asked me to go to visit the Tadong Bahai School up in Sikkim. And in Sikkim, of course, you either go up or you go down, and it's all rocks. And there was George there, and Rezwan, the principal, 1,000 students in a very short time, and George, ever the improviser, finding too many rocks, nowhere to build long blocks of classrooms, just put up cells of classrooms wherever there was flat, less rocky, and he had the whole school running there with 1,000 students enrollment. And that's the ever moving George. 2013, and again in 2018 at the international conventions, it was a great joy to see Gloria there, George's daughter, counselor, and it's for me and Irene, it brought back wonderful memories of George and his family. And our sincere condolences to Rezwan, Gloria, Joy, and Indira, Tyra. I think it was Joy who was our daughter, Munira's closest friend. Indira. Well, greetings from the Marshall Islands, and our best wishes and greetings to the family of George and those of the friends and relatives in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tafaki, for those wonderful recollections. Your his sharing is bringing tears and smiles to our face at the same time. We continue, friends, with our final two prayers and readings.
As to the question whether the souls will recognize each other in the spiritual world, this fact is certain, for the kingdom is the world of vision, where all the concealed realities will become disclosed. How much more the well-known souls will become manifest, the mysteries of which man is heedless in this earthly world, those he will discover in the heavenly world, and there he will be informed of the secret of truth. How much more will he recognize or discover persons with whom he hath been associated? Undoubtedly, the holy souls who find a pure eye and are favored with insight will, in the kingdom of lights, be acquainted with all mysteries and will seek the bounty of witnessing the reality of every great soul. Even they will manifestly behold the beauty of God in that world. Likewise will they find all the friends of God, both those of the former and recent times, present in the heavenly assemblage. Abdullah.
Aloha everyone, my name is Coral.
I'm Liam.
And I'm Lula. We are Ruhiye and Jim's grandchildren, Don's children from Seattle. We are happy to be here with everyone, honoring the life of our dear Uncle George Menezes. We would like to share a song from the Bahai writings talking about the nature of love. Love is not of the body, but completely of the soul. The soul. Love is not of the body, but completely of the soul. The soul. Love is not of the body, but completely of the soul. The soul. Love is not of the body, but completely of the soul. The soul. For those souls, whose inner beings are lit by the love of God. Body, but completely of the soul. The soul. Love is not of the body, but completely of the soul. The soul. Love is not of the body, but completely of the soul. The soul. For true love, real love, is the love for God. For true love, real love, is the love for God. For true love, is the love for God, for true love, real love, is the love for God. Love is not of the body, but completely is the love for the soul. Love is not of the body, but completely is the love for the soul. Love is not of the body, but completely is the love for the soul. Love is not of the body, but completely is the love for the soul. Love is not of the body, but completely of the soul.
That was so wonderful. Thank you, friends, for those wonderful prayers and readings, those wonderful reflections, and to hear the grandchildren as well is so, so special for all of us. Thank you for offering those prayers. Friends, we want to now open it up a little bit and maybe call on a few folks to share. We want to call first Nazi Sepahi, a former student at the New Era School. And we have 3 prayers after that. We'll have Masood, the nephew of George, chant in Arabic. We have Muni Tafaki, will chant in Hindi. And we have Santosh, who will chant as well for us. So let's open it up to Nazijun.
Thank you, Kirk. Thank you for the opportunity. I have many memories of George. I'll start with the first time I met George. It was on a very dark, rainy night when the bus that carried a small group of new children, including myself, parked in front of the dining hall. I was 12 years old, and we had just arrived at New Era. George was the first person we all met at New Era. He got on the bus, and lovingly, he looked at our faces. We were tired, frightened, filled with anxiety. We didn't know where we were. He said in Farsi, with his sweet Farsi accent, "Bachaha biain, come, children, come. Let's go eat." He took us to the dining room. He fed us, and he sat with us and made sure that we all ate. That night was the beginning of my journey with George for the next several years at New Era as I finished high school. He helped my mental, emotional, spiritual growth at New Era. His voice still echoes in my ears, calling my name, Nazi, Nazi, encouraging me, guiding me, coaching me, directing me, and sometimes even scolding me. He helped and encouraged me to learn English quickly. He helped and found a Hindi tutor in the bazaar to teach me Hindi so I could pass the SSE exam. When the result of the SSE exams came, before even I knew the results, George put my little sister Mandana on his shoulders and marched around the school, drumming on a big pot, announcing on top of his voice, "Nazi pass Hindi, Nazi pass Hindi." Such was his love and devotions to the students. He also taught me to have fun. He showed me where to pick up cabbages in the field. He told me the best time to collect mangoes that have fallen off the trees. He'd say, get up 5 o'clock in the morning before anybody else gets there. On many occasions, he would leave a small box of mangoes under my bed because he knew how much I loved mangoes. But above all else, George taught me the love for humanity and service by taking me to small villages where he would be helping them with their projects, bringing them food and supplies. He'd also give me small jobs in the kitchen, helping with food preparation and making ice cream. The list goes on and on. George molded my character. He was one of the main reasons that I became attracted to the Baha'i faith and became a Baha'i. George perfected his own spiritual qualities in this world. He came to this world to touch our lives, make us all better beings, teach us humility, hard work, service, and love for mankind. I know George is smiling at us from heaven right now. He's surrounded by angels. And even there, he's going to be busy running around doing more work for God. May God bless him 1,000 times. May God showers him with his love and grace. There will never be another George Menezes. We were all lucky and blessed to have crossed his path.
Thank you, dear Nazi. Well said. So true. How he has impacted all of our lives and so many thousands and thousands of others that are not with us today as well. Masujun, we would love to hear a chant from you.
Allahumma innaka anta mufarriju kulli hammin wa munqidhu kulli karbin wa mudhibu kulli ghammin ومخلص كل عبد ومنقذ كل نفس خلصني اللهم برحمتك واجعلني من عبادك المنقذين خلصني اللهم برحمتك واجعلني من عبادك المنقذين.
Thank you, Masujun. Friends, let's remember to keep our systems on mute. We ask Muni Tafaki. I don't see her with us. Is Muni here?
Here.
Muni, go ahead, Muni, and then we'll hear from Santosh.
Alo Putra Gyani Rom Romin Shabda Jagatu Sunale min teri karta purani O Agyani O alo putra Gyani Rom Romin Shabda Jagatu Sunare me teri karta purani O Agyani Ye jaga beshaka bahut न था लेकिन इसका सब कुछ झूठा ये जगह बेशक बहुत न था लेकिन इसका सब कुछ झूठा सब कुछ भूल लगा लो मुझ में सब कुछ भूल लगा लो मुझ में मैं हूँ तेरी दिशा सुहानी ओ अज्ञानी ओ आलो पुत्र ज्ञानी रोम रोम में शब्द जगा तू सुन ले मैं तेरी करता पुरानी ओ अज्ञानी ओ अज्ञानी
ओ मनुष्य के पुत्र तुम्हारा कोई नहीं सहायक ओ मनुष्य के पुत्र तुम्हारा कोई नहीं सहायक मात्र एक मैं ही हूँ तुमको संभल देने लायक, संभल देने लायक। मुझ पर ही संतोष करो तुम, नहीं किसी की खोज करो। आ आ मुझ पर ही संतोष करो तुम, नहीं किसी की खोज करो। मैं ही हूँ संपूर्ण स्वयं में, खोज हमारी रोज करो, खोज हमारी रोज करो। ओ मनुष्य के पुत्र तुम्हारा कोई नहीं सहायक, मात्र एक मैं ही हूँ तुमको संभल देने लायक, संभल देने लायक, संभल देने लायक।
Thank you, Santosh. That was beautiful. Thank you, Munira. Friends, we want to now call on dear Ray and Lanelma Johnson to say a few words, some of their own reflections, and then we'll have some more prayers and reflections. We're coming on 1 hour now, friends. So if you can't continue to stay, feel free to log off. I think at the high point, we were at 195 people, which is so wonderful that we were all able to join. And just to let Amin Mershai know to get the pastries and chai ready, because I think a lot of people are coming over after this. So Amin, just be ready, okay? All right, I turn it over to Mom and Dad to share some of their reflections.
Aloha, everyone. Mrs. Johnson and I are so pleased to be part of this celebration of George and his family, and that he has taken that step through to the next world, which is closer than a life vein. Of course, we have many, many stories, and this is not the place to share them, but I want to share one story and ask Mrs. Johnson to share one of hers. And what I would like to tell you about is that one time I was sitting in the office there at New Era, and I looked out the window and I saw that there was a circle under the large banyan tree of some villagers, about 8 or 10 villagers, and then I noticed that George was sitting with them. And I didn't think too much of it. And then later in the day, I ran into George and I said, George, I noticed you were talking to some of the villagers this morning. And I said, are we having trouble, with the milkmen again? And he said, no. He says, we were just talking. And I said, okay. And then I went on about our business. Well, in a few weeks later, I saw another group of villagers sitting under the banyan tree, and again. And so, I was saying, there's really something must be going on. And so later I called George into the office and I said, George, you were sitting under the banyan tree with a group of villagers again. are you sure that there's not something going on that I need to know about? And he said, no. And I said, George, please, if there's anything, and particularly if I can help you, just tell me. And he said, well, once in a while, they're having a problem in the valley. And some, villagers are not getting along with each other, and there's a lot of disunity. And so they come up and we start talking about it. And I says, why are they up here talking about it if it's a problem in the valley? And he said, well, they like to talk to me about it because I listen. And then when everybody's had an opportunity to say what they want to say, then I give them my opinion. And then they all say, okay. And they get up and they go into the bazaar or wherever they're going. And then they go off and I go off and I do my business and they're doing their business back down in the valley. And so, because Fly River and Nazi and some of you have spoken so much about the virtues and attributes that George portrayed, modeled for everyone, not just the children, but for staff and for community, and even in the valley, George had the reputation of being honest and fair and able to suggest meaningful, solutions to whatever problems that was going on. And I suddenly realized that while I have recognized these things and how much everybody loves George, loves his watermelon juice, loves his ice cream, and he's always there, as Nazi said, and he's taught so much of who we are now and in our lives, and we owe him so much, but we get to realize that he is closer than a life vein, and we are, as Baha'is, asked to contact the concourse on high. And that's where George is. He's with his fellow angels. He's waiting to welcome you when you have the opportunity to step over into the next world. And we all love and we all cherish George Menezes and Rezwan and the whole extended family of Menezes. Thank you, Lenelma.
Thank you. Well, friends, when the Johnson family arrived in Panchgani in 1971, September 1st, it was raining. And again, George was there to greet us. Rezwan Khanum was there. And we also stayed in Rezwan Khanum's cottage, which was just next to Haddon House, for 4 months, the first 4 months of our stay there. Guess who came every day, checking on us, consulting with us, helping us. So it didn't take me long to realize that George Menezes and his beautiful wife, Rezwan, wanted us to stay at New Era for sure. They wanted to do everything they possibly could to ensure our health and our happiness, our safety, and not worry about our children. So right away, Mitra and Samira just came and took over our kids, took charge of them, and we knew that they would be safe. But there are two small stories I want to tell you about George. And if you read my book, Oki and Asari.
We're not trying to sell the book, okay?
You will have read some of the stories, especially with George. So because we were staying in Rezwan Khanum's cottage and George and Rezwan were the dorm parents in Haddon House, their room was just next to our cottage. And every afternoon, whether George would bring us boiled water or tea, maybe the servant would come and bring, we always had our food at the school, but we usually had tea in there. George would come and check on me, and I was probably sick a lot of those days. And Dr. Nivsakar was there a lot of those days. But on this particular day, if you can imagine coming from America, when you see little animals crawling on the wall, you get pretty upset. And I was standing on the bed with my chapel hitting at the geckos. George comes in, says, "Oh, ma'am, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. Those are good, good. They will eat the insects." And I said, so that was my first lesson on that geckos were good. And I didn't have to be scared of them biting me or something. The next story I want to tell you was, of course, George and Ray had designed this beautiful plan for our house. Some people call it Garda, but it was really called Rosewood, as Mrs. Fazy had named it when she was there, to have bathrooms indoors and kitchen and so on. So it took 4 months, and every day George and I would cross the field together and we would talk about this plan when we got there and so on. So when it was almost finished and they had completed the kitchens and the bathrooms and so on. So on that particular day, George showed me all of that, but then he said, "I have a surprise for you. Come into your bedroom. I want to show you the bed." So we went into the bedroom and there was a huge 4-foot high, 8x8 table. I thought it was a table. He said, "This is Sir's bed. He won't have his legs and his feet hanging over anymore." I said, "George, this is so high. Thank you for doing this, but how will I ever get up on it?" And he said, "Well, Sir is tall. I thought that he could, get up on it easily and he would be comfortable." And I said, "Is there anything we could do to make it a little lower?" He said, "Oh, no problem." He always said, "No problem. We'll cut the legs off. How high do you think we should make it?" And he had also made a huge, for a net. So a frame to fit onto the bed. And then he said, "And the mattress is coming tomorrow. We had to have it special made because this was so big. And we also had the sheets made because none of the sheets would fit. So they had all the sheets made to fit that bed. But that bed was big enough that our 5 could have morning tea in that bed." And George did all of that as a surprise for his beloved Sir. And as you know, we were always known as Sir and Ma'am, no matter how many years we lived together. And George and Rezwan and your beautiful children, you're so special and precious to us. And the entire family, we love your George so much.
Okay.
But we're so happy that he's free from his suffering. And we are just thrilled that so many people have gathered together to celebrate his beloved life.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for that wonderful sharing. Friends, we now turn to some friends who would also like to share maybe a reflection or a prayer. We have Anup from San Francisco first. Hopefully Anup is still with us. And then Chapi from India. And then Anand Upadhyaya from New Era, batch of 81. He wanted to make sure everybody knew that, batch of 81. He'll offer a prayer in Sanskrit, and then Mehran Yazalu will offer a prayer as well. So Anup?
Yeah, I'm here, Doctor. Thank you so much. It's I feel so grateful, humbled, and pained. I was chatting with Tyra ma'am, and I was sending message to Gloria. My life is all around George uncle and Rezwan ma'am. That's where my life started. I joined kindergarten when I was 3 years old at Bahai Primary School in Tadong. I have an eidetic memory. So I remember how my first day at 3-year-old was. I was crying, and I remember George uncle took me from my father's arms and took me to class, and it was in the lower level. And that was how George uncle came to be in my mind. And then he rang the bell that day. And from that day within our family, he's known as Bell Uncle. Even now, even my wife, who I married 8 years ago, she also knows him as Bell Uncle. So when I got the news, I paused completely. But then I knew that, it was time for him to move on. He was in a lot of pain and he's in a better place. So maturity took over, and I conveyed the message to my dad. My dad is very old right now, and he was also shocked, and he scribbled some notes. I'll send it over to you, ma'am. And we have memories of George uncle having his cap on, his monkey cap on, and his half sweater, taking care of the school, ensuring that the students are in class. Memories of George uncle never shouting at students, but being very compassionate to everyone around, and understanding and knowing what every person feels. He knew the names of everyone in the school, including guardians and parents. He used to call my father Professor Sahab. And till date, my father feels that, that was one person who respected him so much. And the whole family of Gloria, the Indira, the Joy, it's such a beautiful memory. It shaped me to be what I am today. And there's an anecdote that I was never given allowance by my father because he never thought it necessary. Sikkim was a very happy place. But George uncle every day during lunch break would give me watermelon or the aloo bun or an ice cream. And that taste never can come back ever again. So glory to his name and glory to George uncle. It feels really, really good to be among such people who love him so much. He deserves much more. Thank you.
दयालु है हे उदार हे ईश्वर मेरे ईश्वर वह दयालु है हे उदार हे ईश्वर मेरे ईश्वर वह दयालु है तू देखता है मुझे तू जानता है मुझे तू देखता है मुझे तू जानता है मुझे तू ही है मेरी आश्रय और मेरी शरण वह दयालु है हे उदार हे ईश्वर मेरे ईश्वर वह दयालु है तुझे छोड़ किसी अन्य को न चाहूंगा तुझे छोड़ किसी अन्य को न चाहूंगा तेरे प्यार के राहों के सिवा न चला है न चलूंगा वह दयालु है, हे उदार, हे ईश्वर, मेरे ईश्वर। वह दयालु है, हे उदार, हे ईश्वर, मेरे ईश्वर।
Greetings to everybody. This is Anand Upadhyay. I was in the NEHS from the KG to class 12. My respects to our guru, who was the first human engineering guru from whom we have learnt a lot. A small prayer in his memory in Sanskrit. Om Jauhu Shanti Dantarikshago Shanti Pruthavi Shanti Dvapadaya Shanti Rokhadaya Shanti Vanaspadaya Shanti Vishve Devaha Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvagun Shanti Shanti Deha Shanti Sama Shanti Dehi Yato Yataha Samihase Tato No Abhayang Guru Shannaha Guru Prajabhyo Bhayanna Pashupaha Sri Shanti Bhavatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Alapa friends, Mehran from Australia. We convey our heartfelt condolences to the grieving family, and we pray for endurance and strength to be able to deal with this difficult time. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge the living champions of New Era who have molded our lives. And this is a small prayer for the progress of George's soul. He is God, O peerless Lord. Praised be thou for having kindled that light in the glass of the concourse on high, for having guided that bird of faithfulness to the nest of the Abha kingdom. Thou hast joined that precious river to the mighty sea. Thou hast returned that spreading ray of light to the sun of truth. Thou hast welcomed that captive of remoteness into the garden of reunion, and led him who longed to look upon thee to thy presence in thy bright place of lights. Thou art the Lord of tender love. Thou art the last goal of the yearning heart. Thou art the dearest wish of the martyr's soul. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, Mehran. Friends, I invite Shahla Sti, who would like to share some reflections with us. Shahla John?
Alabha.
Alabha.
I think I'm the oldest New Era student, except I think Nusrat is here. So Nusrat and I have known George for over 60 years. And we were there when George and Rezwan decided to get married. And it was a whole gang of us. It was Rezwan and Munira and Najla and Nusrat and Tabi and Ruhia and Gulbanu and a few others. And there was George. So we were on on youth committee together. One of the early pictures you saw, that's a picture of the youth committee. And we decided to go down to Chikli, which doesn't exist anymore. and do some teaching. And of course, George made sure that we all had a bicycle that was pretty safe and had no problem. So we all biked down to Chickley. And we decided that we would go there and talk to the women and play with the children. And we decided that we would comb the children's hair. So we did. And of course, in the process, we also came back with a few bugs in our hair. And Rezwan Khanum was pretty upset with us. And George said, don't worry, it's easy to get rid of. One of the women who worked we used to live in Hollywood. The girls were in Hollywood and the boys were in Hillwood. And Goljun was in the Gloria Faizi was in where the Johnsons moved into. So I spent a lot of time there. And of course, Rezwan Khan would send George to bring me back because it was either time to have dinner or time to go to bed or something like that. He was very kind. He would come and get me. And then, of course, Rezwan told us about how things were going. They were sort of getting to know each other, which was not in the modern way. They were sort of talking with each other before the wedding. Anyway, we dressed Rezwan for the wedding. I think I don't know if, I think Nusrat is here. Nusrat and I are the only other ones beside the family that are here that were at the wedding. I don't know if Adib was at the wedding. And
Nahid was here. Nahid was there.
Who?
Nahid Nadimi.
Oh, yes, yes. She was little. She was not our age. That's true. Nahid was there. Yes, Nahid June. Yes, darling, you were there. You were our baby. You and your brother.
Not anymore.
So George was very shy, and so was Rezwan. They were very, very shy. And so it was a wonderful wedding. It's fantastic. And I had a tiny little camera. I have about 50 pictures of the wedding. I think I still have them. And the last time I saw George was in 2005. And before the Jubilee, when we went to visit Rezwan and George, before the wedding and everything else. But George often came to get us off the trees. Often we would be stuck on top of the mango tree or lemon tree, and somebody had to go and call George to come back with a ladder to get us down before Rezwan Khanum caught us. And he would get us down and get us, push us away before Rezwan Khanum showed up, so we wouldn't get punished. And he also told us when to go and pick up the mangoes and lemons. He also brought us mango and lemon. And of course, in those days, we had the mangoes with salt and chili. So often, some of us would sit underneath the tree with our book, with the mangoes, which were not ripe, and salt and chili. And just about, we would have such a good time. Also, often, if there was a snake or something that we couldn't deal with, we would call on George. And he knew how to make sure that they got away and we got away. Love you.
Thank you, Shala.
Love you, Joy.
Thank you for that sharing. So beautiful, so touching. Friends, we call on Ganesh, who would like to offer, and as well as Fairy Ashraqi. Ganesh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This prayer is in Canaries. George uncle. This prayer is in Canaries, and George uncle used to like it very much. And George uncle knew this language. He's from Mangalore, and we are now both of us are settled in Mangalore. So George uncle words absolutely failed in expressing our gratitude to him.
ಓ ಪಾಪಗಳಿಂದ ಮುಕ್ತಿಗೊಳಿಸುವ ಕರುಣಾನಿಧಿ ವರ ಪ್ರದಾತ ಸಂಕಟದಳ ಭೌತಿಕ ತೊಡುಗೆಯನು ಕಳಚಿ ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮಿಕ ಲೋಕವಂ ನೇರಿದವರ ಪಾಪಗಳನ್ನು ಮನ್ನಿಸೆಂದು ಸತ್ಯವಾಗಿಯೂ ನಾನು ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥಿಸುವೆ. ಓ ಭಗವಂತ ಅವರನ್ನು ಅತಿಕ್ರಮಗಳಿಂದ ಪಾರುಗಾಣಿಸಿ ಪರಿಷ್ಠರನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡು. ಅವರನ್ನು ಕವಿದಿರುವ ಸರಿಯನ್ನು ಬೆಳಕನ್ನಾಗಿ ಪರಿವರ್ತಿಸು. ಅನುಪಮವಾದ ನಿನ್ನ ತೇಜಸ್ಸನ್ನು ಕಾಣುವಂತೆ ಮಾಡು.
We all come from God, and unto him do we return, like the stream flowing back to the ocean, or a ray of light returning to the sun. We all come from God, and unto him do we return, and unto him do we return. We're on a journey from God unto God, up from the world of dust below. We're on a journey from God unto God. For us, there's nowhere else to go. We all come from God, and unto him do we return, like the stream flowing back to the ocean, or a ray of light returning to the sun. We all come from God, and unto him do we return.
O my God, O thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions, verily, I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world. O my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, Manas Joan. That was beautiful. Thank you, Ferry, and thank you, Mrs. Shanoy and Ganesh. Such wonderful prayers and in such wonderful languages. Friends, we have two friends that we're going to conclude with. And we have dear Anwar Akhtar Jahan, who's going to share a few thoughts. And then we can conclude with Zafar Khan, who will offer a prayer in Urdu. Anwar Jahan?
Thank you, Kirk, and it's wonderful. Moshdi and I and our daughter Khorshid here, we're really delighted to see all these beautiful faces, and we know so many of you. Just like to share a couple of short stories of George, who has touched everyone's life, including ours. Dr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson were saying that how on the first day people arrive and George is there. I call him Bhai Saab, but yeah, George is always there receiving them. So Moshde, aged 9, along with Heshmat, who was 7, and Faribo, 5. These 3 kids arrived from Iran, and this time George is not alone to go and welcome them. It was somebody, 11, 12-year-old Anwar was also running around somewhere, and he tells me, Anwar, come, let's go and help these kids. You have to pick up the bags and take them to the dormitories. So I said, okay, I'll come and help. He was my brother-in-law, so yeah, I had great respect and regard for George. Anyway, I pick up one of the biggest bags, which happened to be Moshde's bag, and I put it on my head and I carry it, and I carry it, and I carry it, and I'm still carrying it around. Finally, I put it down in New Zealand, Auckland here. So now the bag has come down, and this is our home. New Zealand is our home. We have all our 3 wonderful children and their spouses, and our 7 grandchildren all here. But when it was George who brought us together, and it's a long story, so I won't get into the details, but when I write to George and Rezwan for their consent, although George is not my biological father, but he was no less. And so I write to them for consent, and this is what Rezwan writes back to me, saying, "Ha, Anwar ko bolo zor se shadi karo." That means tell him to get married with pomp and glory. And so, yeah, that's where we got married. And Dr. Johnson was the one who gets us married. He was the master of ceremonies in the New Era School auditorium, with Rezwan Khanum and Janumali being the two witnesses for our wedding. And there's no looking back. So, yeah, there, Mojdeh can't stop shedding tears. She and George share the same birthday, 4th of June. So both of them were born together, and George had immense love for Mojdeh and always, I think, desired Mojdeh to be sort of
Your companion.
my companion and my soulmate in life. So yeah, all the credit goes to George. And thank you, Fly River and the whole family there. It was wonderful, you know, being with you guys and serving on the project all together as one team and one family. And the last thing is when George is asking Dr. Johnson that you say that this Chikli project belongs to the New Era High School. And then you also say that the Chikli project belongs to the local spiritual assembly. Now, how is that possible? Now, George was so serving on the local assembly as well as the New Era School. So how does that work? And Dr. Johnson, in all his wisdom, he says every child has got two parents, a mother and a father. And George says, yeah, bus, I've understood the whole meaning of it. And so, yeah, that was his mature understanding of the situations there. And thank you once again.
I started giving massage for his neck. And then finally, I was giving and giving. Maybe it became half an hour. And then suddenly he says,
Mojdeh abhi bas kar, main thak gaya. You're not going to get tired, but I'm tired. Now you can leave my...
Thank you, Anvar. Thank you, Mojdeh and Anvar. Khorshid, June, you got to be a better daughter and get your mom some tissue. She's been crying for an hour and a half. So maybe you could get up and get your mom some tissue.
Yeah, here, see?
Oh, there you go.
This
all right.
is the second box since
yesterday. Good job.
Yeah,
Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
Here
you go.
Manaz is saying hello. Friends, it's we want to say hello to everybody. It's so hard to do that with all our mutes on, but it's incredible to, just before we get to the closing prayer, friends, it's incredible to just scroll through these various screens. And I asked my sister to take screenshots of all the screens so that at least the family can have a memory of all these screens, dear Mrs. Menezes. But, and I wonder if it's even possible for us to actually calculate how many countries were on this call. Just, I mean, I see Heshmat, and I see Eme Ekpe, and I see Gloria, and Gita, Akhtar Khavari. I'm surprised Bahman has not asked to say something. This is, I think, one of the miracles of George. He has created a environment where the one guy that I expected to receive a request to say something has not asked to say something. So Bahman Jun, we're gonna have to have a special Zoom session just for your memories of George, I'm sure. But friends, it's just been such a wonderful opportunity. Yes, Omi Jan is blowing kisses. It's just incredible to see all of your faces. Bruce Grover, Amin Mershai, just incredible, friends. Farbo June is holding up dear Monsef's picture. Monsef Agahi passed away recently and is hanging out with George today as well, and is with us. So friends, it's really so wonderful to see all of the friends from all over the world, and to know that George has brought us all together. You know, there's this beautiful story that after his passing, how they found his burial site and what that means possibly for the community in Delhi. It's a wonderful story of how they possibly have found a very large site for a Baha'i cemetery because of George's situation. It's just incredible, all the miracles associated with George's life. And so it's wonderful. And we really thank the Menezes family and the Akhtar Jahan family for allowing us to participate in this very special reflection and devotional gathering. So friends, I want to call on Zafar Khan to offer the closing prayer in Urdu for us. Zafar?
Kirk, we'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Akhtar Jahan family and the Menezes family to thank all of you for coming here and for the Johnsons to putting such a lovely memorial to celebrate Uncle George's life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum.
I'm here to pay tribute to George. What a lovely human. When Irfan and Anwar Bhaijan explained to me how lovely he was, and I see a lot of people talking about George, how great human he was. So I am paying him tribute in my way. Please just repeat behind me what I am saying, and inshallah he will be blessed by God. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah जॉर्ज की रूह को अपने अमान में रख। ए रब्बुल आलमीन, उनसे जो गलतियां हो गई, खताएं हो गई, उनको माफ़ फरमा। ए रब्बुल आलमीन, आपका वादा है कि आप अपने हर इंसानों से 70 माहों से ज़्यादा प्यार करते हैं। जॉर्ज को अपनी आगोश में लें रब्बुल आलमीन, और उसका हिसाब किताब में आसानी फरमाए रब्बुल आलमीन। ए रब्बुल आलमीन, उसके चाहने वालों की तादाद बहुत ज़्यादा है, बहुत ज़्यादा है। रब्बुल आलमीन, जितने लोगों ने जितने तरीक़ों से दुआएं फरमाई हैं उसके लिए, या रब्बुल आलमीन उसको कबूल और मंजूर फरमा। या रब्बुल आलमीन, उसके चाहने वालों में, उसके रिश्तेदारों में, उसके भाइयों में, उसके बहनों में, उसके दोस्तों में, उसके अहबाब में, उसके फेथ में जो जो लोग हैं, जिन जिन लोगों ने दुआएं फरमाई, या रब्बुल आलमीन उसको कबूल और मंजूर फरमा। हे रब्बुल आलमीन, हम खताकार हैं, हम सब खताकार हैं। We all done mistake and error in our life. हे रब्बुल आलमीन, लेकिन आज हम यहाँ जमा हैं उस अजीम इंसान को आपके हवाले करने के लिए। हे रब्बुल आलमीन, उसको अपनी आगोश में लें, उसको जन्नत फिरदौस में जगह दें। या रब्बुल आलमीन, हम सब की दुआओं को कबूल और मंजूर फरमा। या रब्बुल आलमीन, इस महफिल में, इस जूम में जितने लोग हैं रब्बुल आलमीन, उनकी तमाम हाजतों को कबूल और मंजूर फरमा। हे रब्बुल आलमीन, इन तमाम लोगों को ब्लेस्ड रख। हे रब्बुल आलमीन, हम सबको महफूज रख या रब्बुल आलमीन, और हम हमेशा जॉर्ज को अपनी दुआओं में, अपने नेक अल्फाजों में याद रखें रब्बुल आलमीन। और हमारी आखिरी दुआ है रब्बुल आलमीन के जॉर्ज के गुनाहों की बख्शिश कर देना। हे रब्बुल आलमीन, आप 70 माहों से ज़्यादा प्यार करते हैं, उसको अपनी आगोश में लेना। And blessed him and award him a piece of heaven रब्बुल आलमीन। सल्लल्लाहु ताला अला खैर खल्क़ी मुहम्मदिन व अला आलिहि व सहबिहि अजमईन बिरहमतिका या अर्हमर राहिमीन। Jazakallah everyone, and inshallah we will keep praying for George thereafter. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Zafar. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Friends, we have one last friend that would like to share from Sikkim. It's so beautiful that we maybe hear from the top of the world. Prashant Chetri from Sikkim would like to offer.
It's so good to see so many people connected to George Uncle. I was in Bahai from 1986 to 1996-97, and thinking of George Uncle, I like to think of myself as a speck of a dust, of that speck of a dust that George Uncle he touched with his simple life and teaching. He touched so many lives in so many different ways, you know, and he will be missed, but there will always be a part of him deep inside all of us who went to Bahai School, Tadong, and who will guide and teach us to do the right thing as he always did. I think the most important thing that George Uncle taught me personally, that I took from him as a teaching, was the dignity of labor. He always said that do not shy away from doing your work. Imandari se kaam karo, you know. Do all your work with honesty and don't shy away from doing your work. He always said that, And that aspect of his teaching I've incorporated into my life, and I will continue and I will pass it on to my children. And so, George Uncle lives in our life through his teachings and his simple life. Personally, I would like to extend my deepest condolences to Principal Ma'am and the family. And I pray that God give them strength to endure the great loss. And I know that George Uncle, he is somewhere, he rests in eternal peace. And that's all I can say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prashant. That was beautiful. Wonderful way to conclude. Much appreciated.
Sir, I am from Darjeeling. I would like to also offer a prayer for George Uncle.
By all means, please do. By all means.
Okay, my name is Mrs. Yankee from Darjeeling. Okay, George Uncle also a spiritual father for me. Because of him, I got the Bahai faith, and I started my spiritual life. And I learned from his simple and humble life how to live the Bahai life. So this prayer is for him. He mitra ho marera jani sundarta ko nimita sadaiva rahirahani sundarta ko tyana gara radhuno bata utpanna huni छनिक संसारमा तिमीहरू आफ्नो प्रेम नबिर्सौ.
Thank you, Mrs. Yankee. Thank you so much. That was gorgeous. Friends, thank you so much. Again, thank you to the two families for inviting us into this space. Thank you to all the friends from around the world. Feel free to hang out here if you would like. It'll be a bit chaotic if everybody turns off their mute. But it's so wonderful to see everybody's faces. And again, much prayers and thoughts to George, the progress of his soul and the family. It's so wonderful that the grandchildren had an opportunity to experience George in this way as well. So many friends that he has touched over the years, and so many that has covered the earth. It's truly amazing.
Okay,
Hello.
everybody, Khalid Rezwan is talking. Hold on
Oh.
one
Rezwan, we love you.
Everybody quiet, we want to listen to Khalid Rezwan.
Oh.
Allah
Rezwan.
Allah.
Good
to see your face. Hi, Jagdish.
How are you?
Hello.
Okay. Hello, Rezwan John.
Hello.
Love you so much.
Hello.
Khale, why don't you tell us the story of the finding the burial site?
Very simple language. Okay. We have over here, we have about 3 men. Shishir, who is Rajju's husband. Rajju is my adopted daughter, her husband, his brother, and one more friend. Who was it? Jitu and Hesam, Esau, and not everybody was here. These were the men folk. Karma, Suraj, all were here. And they had gone to look for a place. They went first to the Muslims and asked for their to get space in their cemetery. And the Muslims, of course, outright said no, sorry. So then they went to the Christian cemetery and asked for place for burial. And they also refused. They said no, even though his name is George, but he's not a registered Christian here. So we are very sorry. So they came and they told, and Indra came and very gently told me, Mummy, we are not getting any place for burial. I said, don't worry. Baha'u'llah is taking us to the right place. I said, I'm not worried at all. Let him be here only. I said, don't worry. I really felt it from my heart that we were being led to the right place. I said, don't worry. But there was a lot of, discussion in the room. We were about 20 of us here. Everyone was talking. The ward boy who looked after George all these days was in Calcutta, and he had just arrived. He saw that there was some commotion, something happening. He cannot follow English. So he asked Indra finally, what's happening? What's all the discussion about? He said, Bhaiya, humko jagah nahi mil raha hai burial ke liye. He said, oh, he picked up his phone, called somebody, and then turned to Indra. He said, ho gaya. She said, kya ho gaya?
Oh my God.
Yeah, he said, I got the place. You have to give 501 rupee. 1 rupee they always give. Indians give 101, 1001.
Yeah.
So it was 501. You get your food. The men jumped up, all of them. Each had a car. So the whole Jingbang with Suraj rushed to the place of burial. And this is about 50 acres of land bought and given by the government for people who don't get any place for burial. So here there were, there are children buried because children are not burnt. It's by the river, by the way.
It was actually meant for the accident, train accident that happened.
There was a train accident.
306 have been cremated buried.
Train accident happened some time back, and there was no place to bury those people because they didn't know whether they were Muslims or Christians or what. And then, hi Mitra. And so we got this place. It's such a beautiful place out in the open, and there are groves of guava trees, a whole lot of them. And the groves, because they've planted this area, bananas, guavas, and the patch that we got is a big one. If we don't get, this is government land. So it's going to be very tough. But George got it. And then the man who was in charge over there said, you pay 5,000, now this is permanently yours. You put a stone here, then when you want to make it pakka, then you can come and make it pakka. So that was it.
Miracle.
Wonderful story.
Interesting.
George is really blessed, really. George is
Very interesting. George loved bananas.
Oh my God, yes.
And when we were small, I think there were some trees in the school somewhere where he would always water. And then later when the bananas were ready, he would bring it for all of us.
On the way to Heden's house, left-hand side.
I have one story.
Anwar, let's listen to Anwar.
There you go. This is
We love bananas too.
from George's time. Mojde is addicted to
I
bananas.
love bananas.
Okay, here's the story. Who knows how George and Rezwan got married? Put up your hand.
More or less. I remember something, but not.
So I'm going to. This is my version of it. Now, Appa is listening from there. She can enjoy it as well. So the story is my father passed on, and Rezwan and Tahira were the only two siblings who were in Panchgani studying in New Era. The whole family was in UP. Finally, our family also moved here. It's a long story. But Rezwan heard of the news that her father had passed on. So she was very disturbed. And George was always on the lookout for children who wouldn't come to the dining hall to eat for whatever reason. So he asked Tahira, where's your sister? Why isn't she coming? He says, well, she's not in the right mood. He says, so tell me what happened. She said, okay. the story is that our father has passed on. And so, you know, so he says, okay, call Rezwan. So Rezwan is called. And then George is asking Rezwan, so what's the take? He says, yeah, my father is passed on. But there's another Bahai family from Calcutta or someone who says that my father has given my hand in marriage to the son, meaning Rezwan has to get married to his son in Calcutta, coming from a Bahai family. But Rezwan didn't know that person, didn't want to get married to anybody she didn't know. And so she tells George that this fellow wants to marry me and I don't know who this guy is. So George says, okay, I have a solution. He said, what's your solution? He said, let's go to Reza Khanum and say that we want to get married. So George gives the solution. He said, Rezwan, you and I, let's go to Rezwan Khanum and tell Rezwan Khanum that this situation and we want to get married. So they go and they tell the local assembly and everything else. And yeah, and finally that's how they get married. And then all her friends were there to help with the marriage. So that's the wonderful story of Appa. Did I give the right version or there's another version?
No problem. Like George would say, no problem. You're not very wrong.
I remember as a little girl when I joined school, I came to the dormitory where I was supposed to stay, and the other section was the elders' dormitory. And Rezwan, I remember, she wouldn't get out of bed and she was crying and crying. I think it was the same time when Rezwan, your dad, had passed away, I suppose. And you were crying so bitterly, and all day you were in bed crying. I remember that much. As a little girl, I remember everything in school. And I remember Rezwan and your hard work with university, how you would go and study. And it was so wonderful, really, with the children and how you managed. And George, how he used to, he was like a spiritual father for us. And you were so wonderful, really. I can remember.
Another story, Kirk. I was almost 4 years old when I came to school.
Wow.
And George was the one who would sing lullaby to make me sleep.
Oh my God.
And then when I grew a little, George would sing literally. Yeah. And then when I grew a little older, I would always want to go to village teaching, but students were not allowed. And George would quietly tell me to wait somewhere. And when the jeep came, he would make me sit in the jeep and take me in late night, drop me out. And he always took me with him for teaching.
Miss Menezes say something, because it's such a joy and pleasure to have Miss Menezes. Really, it's a bounty to have her.
We want to hear.
Miss Menezes, please tell us. Tell us the Bull Brahman story. Tell us the story you used to tell me in school.
Please.
You know, I had the pleasure of having Miss Menezes as my English teacher.
Right.
She was the best, one of the best teachers I've ever had. I will never forget her stories.
That's very true. I remember Rezwan Khanum, we used to sit during the holidays in the dining room, and you used to work English with me. I had just arrived about maybe 3 or 4 months. And I'm Jalila, by the way, if you have not recognized me. Jalila. Yeah.
Jalila Galaxy. That's right.
The Galaxy.
Other space.
Yeah. But I mentioned to Ruhi that I'm definitely coming for the devotional, but I don't know how my name, I guess it's registered as Galaxy now. So I remember with Rezwan Khanum, we used to sit together. You remember, in the old dining room. We used to take the last table, the end table. And we and you would work with me the grammar and everything when I had first arrived. Wonderful. You were so, I mean, you are wonderful still, but that time you were so dedicated. You wanted me to learn so quickly. Like you said, you have to finish before others. You can learn very quickly, and you have to join the class and all the regular class. So I remember your encouragements and your dedication very well. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. What to tell you? You know more than I do. You know, he spent all his life with you children. I used to tell him often, you're married to the school, not to me. You know, he used to leave the house at 6 in the morning and come at 9 in the night. So that's, and then we were too tired anyway. But his life was new era. Even now, when we were in Sikkim, he used to spend all day in Sikkim. He was in the school working. But all his nights, he was either in Chikli Valley or in New Era. Either speaking in Marathi with people in the Chikli Valley or in New Era, somewhere or the other, I know, whatever. So I'd tell him, I said, George, whom were you talking to? He said, what? I said, you said something like, mulgi, don't give your mulgi to anybody like that. You should first see your mulgi is so small, don't get her married. So he was advising some villager not to get their children married too early. I said, oh, okay, so you're still in Panchgani, though we spent quite a few years in Sikkim. From 79 to 2005, we were there together. And then, of course, he retired, and after 1 year, I retired. He retired in 2004. I went in 2005. I couldn't work without him. Not that, but he had a wonderful time in New Era. New Era was his home. And Ogai Mir Shahi, that is Rustam Mir Shahi, was his spiritual father. Every morning in Lucky's, sit together, have Sahar Khizi every morning. And Ogai Mir Shahi used to tell them from the dawn breakers. So when I was reading the dawn breakers, I would say, George, listen, this. He's saying, yeah, but you're wrong. It is this. I'd say, how do you know? He's saying, Ogai Mir Shahi taught me. He had a very sharp memory. Till the end, he remembered quite a lot. And only he couldn't communicate. But he could hear from the left ear. Left ear was better. And I would pray to him his favorite prayers. One was that Ilahiya Ilahi, which Ormon and Gloria prayed. And another one was Waloi Parvadigor Khatyote Nofusro. He would chant so beautifully. He had just 3 prayers by, no, 4 or 5 prayers by memory. One was Halmen Mofarijan. So all this was taught in childhood. Whatever he learned in Lucky's stayed with him. And Ogai Mir Shahi was his spiritual father. Though he accepted the faith in Bombay, it was in Panchgani, in the Lucky restaurant, that he really got his grounding in the Bahai faith. And he was a fantastic Bahai. He was beautiful. I don't know, no, I don't think you know. But you know, when he accepted the faith in New Era, I mean, in Bombay, and he accepted the faith, he was boycotted by his family. His father sent him out, said, now you have nothing to do with us, because they were Catholics and they wanted him to be a priest. He couldn't be a priest for some reason. He didn't like things in the church and all that. He was not very happy. And his friends were Mazia Rouhani's father and, you know, all the Rouhanis in Bombay. They were cricket friends, actually. That play cricket. He was very small built, like Jagdish. Jagdish has grown tall now, but he was very small built as a child. But he had to carry the whole kit to the playground. He would go happily because he was given the ball. Then he was given the ball and he could fetch the ball, so he could touch the ball. And of course, once in a while he got to bat. But he was Shapur Rouhani's friend. And it hurt him a lot to learn at the church that if only Christians will go to heaven and the rest will go to hell, because Jesus saves. He loved Jesus. And he couldn't understand how such a thing can happen. I mean, so he asked the priest. When the priest confirmed it, you know, very boldly, then George, that was it. And George left, and he was homeless now because his father didn't want him, his brothers, nobody wanted him. So then Shahpur and all said, come to our house. He thought they were Parsis. He didn't know they were Baha'is. So they took him to their house, and they had a grandmother. I don't know what her name was, but she was a wonderful human being, wonderful, very kind and gentle. And she said, yeah, below the stairs, there is space. We'll keep one bed there and George can sleep. So George grew up with them. They were very sweet, very nice people. And he used to run errands, you know, do chores in the house. Before that, life was very difficult when he was younger, very difficult. He sold bananas on the platform. He even worked in restaurants where he had to wash big vessels. He was such a small boy, but he had to wash big pots. You know, they cook food in big pots. In that, he had to wash. So he had a very tough life, and that is why he knew the dignity of labor. He said nothing is too small. Everything, one should learn how to do everything. This helped us so much when we came to Sikkim. Sikkim was a place which we took to heart, you know. We made our own, the two of us together. There was no proper boiler, nothing to heat water, so we collected wood. Zina Khanam was watching us from she said, y'all won't let anything defeat you. We collected wood, and you know, that's how we heat water and had bath and all that on the first day. But coming back to Panchgani, George volunteered at the 19-day feast that he would like to pioneer to Panchgani because they needed one more Bahai, or I think so. It was during the time of the 10-year crusade that he came to Panchgani. And Hazrat Shoga Effendi was still alive. And George didn't know much, but whatever he knew meant a lot to him. And he was very serious about being a Baha'i. For him, everything, you know, he took very seriously. So when it came to the question of getting married, he had found me after my father passed away, and I refused to go to the dining hall. I couldn't eat. I was just sitting and praying because I had to give an answer to Rezwan Khanam that I was ready to get married to somebody in Calcutta and go away. I said, no, I don't want to go, but I couldn't dare to go and tell her that I will not go. So I was, you know, I was in my dorm praying all the time. And George, who was very fond of the girls, Shahlon, Najla, Nusrat, Munira, Thobi, we were the big girls in those days. Not very big, we were not prefects still, but he would bring all the tidbits like custard pudding and zardaulu and all that and serve us a little more every day. And then he saw that my seat was empty, day in, day out. Where is she? And then they told her that she is not coming because her father died. So he said that, you know, tell her I want to talk to her. And so actually his duty was to take all the children to their dorms, leave them in the dorms from Fernwood. We used to study in Fernwood. I was in class 9, exams were nearing. And he had to pick up all the big girls. That was his last duty, and take them all to their dorms, leave them in the dorms. And he told Inshallah, Nusrat and all, tell her I will take her last. I was studying, he took me, and then he said, what is wrong? What happened? And I told him, and he said that tell Rezwan Khanam that I will marry you. I was so shocked. I was really shocked. I said, you will marry me? I mean, I was a student then, and we called him George. There was no sir. And we used to still look like, I'm upset with you. Why you caught us breaking my Peru? Because he caught us breaking Peru a few days back, and he took all the Peru to Rezwan Khanam's table and kept it in the center. And so we were all punished because of that. So we were with him, not talking terms. So when we were not on talking terms, we would not say Allah or George. And he would feel very hurt that we girls were not saying Allah about him.
Oh God.
And so at night, he said that when he said, I'll marry you, I just couldn't understand like what was happening. But I was so happy. I was so relieved that I didn't have to leave New Era. I
To
didn't have to go
Calcutta.
anywhere. Yeah, I didn't have to go to Calcutta. So then, of course, Anwar told all the things. Rezwan Khanum was so shocked, but I had all the courage because George was standing there. I could see him from my window. I could see from Rezwan. I could see George. So it gave me a lot of courage. I said, she said, he'll marry you. I said, yeah. He told me he'll marry me. I don't have to go. So she said, you go away. I'll talk to you later. Because she couldn't talk to me now. Student, I'm a student. She's Rezwan Khanum. And she's talking to me about my marriage. She said, you don't even know what you're talking about. Go away. So I went. And he asked me what happened. I told him the whole thing. I said, this. He said, okay, don't worry now. I'll take it from here. And so he took it from there and he did all the rest. Of course, first and foremost, we gathered all our money. He had some money in the bank. I had given tuitions to some children. I had about 60 rupees with the Rezwan Khanum. We collected all that and we posted it to Amma, my mother in Lorpur, because she had no money. And we told her, you come away. You come to Panchgani. And I told George, you know what you're saying? My mother is so small and my brothers and sisters are very little. The littlest one, Munira, was only 2.5. And then his, yeah, they were all so little. He said, no, God is there. Paola will take care. And then, yes. And then, of course, you know, all this is like a story out of a, I don't know what. Anyway.